Oh, there we go. Oh my gosh, this is
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Think Outside podcast presented by Baits.com. Man, today we have a super special guest joining us. He just finished up an incredible week of bass fishing at Lake Fork. He got a century belt, got his first Elite Series win. We're going to have Tucker Smith load in here. Hey, Tucker, how you doing, man?
What's up? I'm doing good.
Good. So I believe you're down at the Sabine River, right? You woke up this morning, hung out, got your boat fixed, and then drove down to the Sabine.
Yep, I'm hanging out at the Sabine right now, getting ready to get out there and try to figure out these tiny bass.
It's insane to go from what'd you have 127 pounds of bass over 4 days, and now what are you going to shoot for, like 10 a day, 12 a day?
Yeah, 12 a day is the goal. So yeah, I wish we would have gone to Sabine first and then Lake Fork, so we could have built our way up. But yeah, we're going back to Sabine, so it's I'm looking forward to it though. I like just fishing tournaments.
Yeah, totally. Just kind of reversing of it all. If you think about it, like the biggest bass in the country to the smallest bass, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start from the beginning, Tucker. You want to talk about practice and just how this all transpired? Like, dude, it's insane to say you caught 127 pounds of bass in 4 days of fishing. Like, that is nuts. Everyone you caught was huge, it seemed like, literally. Do you want to kind of walk us through how you started your practice, what you were looking for, and kind of how that led to your fantastic tournament?
Yeah, man, it was such a fun event. There's so many big fish in Lake Fork, but I spent a lot of time behind my graphs, side scanning with the hummingbirds, and all 3 days of practice I was scanning, and I barely made any casts. I basically scanned every bit of the lake, every point, every drop off, every channel swing, everything. Through the timber fields on points with nothing on them, just everything. And I tried to find as many places that held fish, whether it be a hard spot or brush piles or anything like that would hold fish. And I ended up finding, I think, about 7 or 8 places in practice that held fish that I was confident that I could catch some on. And so, yeah, I just graphed the whole time. And I spent a lot of time behind my electronics, so I'm pretty comfortable with them. I live on Lake Gunnersville now, so I spend a lot of time looking at side scans. So I like doing it a lot. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do is look at that side scan and find a sneaky spot that you can catch some big ones.
So you were really just looking at every single little point you could find. Was there anything like really specific that you noticed, a couple of your schools were hanging out on? That's what they were. They weren't just like, are they 5 fish schools, 30 fish schools? Kind of how did it set up?
Yeah, so in practice, the water was stable and those fish were grouped up really well on hard spots. These hard spots were probably about the size of, I'd say, a boat on some of the smaller ones. And then some of the bigger ones were, 20, 30 feet long, but they were just small little hard spots that these fish were hanging out on and they were feeding on and they were grouping up on. But it seemed like practice was good. The water was stable. And the last day of practice, we had a hard rain. It raised up the lake and they started ripping current. They opened up the floodgates. And so the first day of the tournament, those fish were really spread out. There wasn't many fish on those places. There was like 1 or 2 fish on each place. Ended up catching 25 pounds the first day, I think 25.4, and which had me in 20th place after the first day.
Which is absolute, like, I'm going to say insane a million times in this podcast. Like, that is nuts. 25 pounds and 20th. Did you say 20th place or was it 25th place?
20th place with 25.25.
Nuts. Like, what were you thinking when you got back to the house? You're like, dang, I got to go out and drop 30 tomorrow. Like, what was your game plan kind of into that night going into day 2? You got back to the house. What were you thinking?
I mean, I was really shocked with the weights, with how good they were. I know that Lake Fork, obviously in the past, it's produce some giant bags. So I just didn't expect that, in May with those fish just getting off the bed and they're moving out to those offshore places. I thought it was going to be a lot tougher than it actually was. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I was just trying to catch the biggest bag that I possibly could every day.
Gosh. So I know you went down there and pre-practiced. I think we talked after the classic. I believe you went down, if I'm not mistaken. Did you find any of those hard spots in practice, or was this just straight 3 days of idling nonstop? And that's kind of how you found these 8 or so hard spots?
Yeah, no, in practice, pre-practice, I honestly just got up there and just figured out how to run the place because there's so much timber out there. I didn't want to rip my lower unit off in practice when I was trying to find fish. So I just got up there and figured out how to run the place, got comfortable running around it. And yeah, I caught some bedfish, but that didn't really help me because it seemed like when we were there, all the fish were on bed. And so I think it was me, Paul, and Emil and Andrew Loberg, the guys that I'm staying with for the year. We all went down there and just kind of tried to figure out how to run the place.
Fair. Nice. Super nice. So you kind of touched on day one. They really started pulling water, which, you think on a TVA, like usually if they start pulling a bunch of water, that gets them grouped up even better, right?
Yep.
At least on Chickamauga for me, like, dude, if I wake up, they're pulling 30,000, 35, like, I'm going to go smash them. You know what I mean? And then for them to break up, that seems crazy to me. Was it like just a huge rainstorm that broke them up, or kind of like what happened there?
Yeah, I'm not too sure because just like on Gunnersville, when they rip current like that, it's usually really good and they bite. But it seems like those fish just kind of spread out and they got really close to the bottom and just kind of disappeared when that current was ripping. But it seemed like once that water got stable, like the second, third, fourth day, it seemed like that water got more stable and stable every single day. And those fish actually grouped back up into those places and I was able to catch them. It was weird. It was kind of the opposite of what you'd think, but I guess that's how Lake Fork works and that's what I figured out.
That's crazy. So you literally, what'd you have on day two? Kind of walk me through day two then. Day one was obviously tougher on you. So Friday comes around and you dropped a mega bag. Was it your biggest bag of your life or no?
Yeah, actually the fourth day was my biggest bag of my life, but
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
second day I had, I think it was 34, it was either 34.4 or 34.5, I think. The second day, it was nuts, dude. But the biggest thing for me was getting in a rotation, and that was a thing that once I'd practiced, I had these places that I'd found in practice, but I didn't really fish much. And so the
Yeah.
first day of the tournament, I was using that kind of to see when those fish would bite, and I kind of got better at finding the rotation and finding the bite windows that these fish had. And the second day, I really dialed in my rotation to hit these offshore holes. And every single day, I got to a T the hour when to pull up on these places when they were the most grouped up to be able to catch them.
So they were like you had what, 8 or so different schools you were fishing. So it would be like 9 o'clock. You're pulling up to this school, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. You're pulling up to this school. How did you figure that out that was happening? Just by running them, like, that first and second day, and then really figuring it out. That's nuts.
Yeah, I was running a bunch of those places, and it seemed like in the
Yeah.
morning there was so much bait around a lot of those holes they wouldn't bite. The bait was just everywhere, and I had my best spot. I didn't get bit till about 8:30 every day that I fished it, and 8:30 that bait would clear, and those fish would group up, and I would catch some big ones. I caught 2 overs on this one place, and I was waiting until about 8:30 to pull up, and then I would catch them.
That's nuts. So what would you kind of do to start out? Like, let's say it was day 2, you smashed them, you kind of got in that rotation. So day 3 comes around. What did you do to start off your tournament? Because you knew you've got this, obviously, couple magical holes on Lake Fork, smashing giant ones. How did you kind of wake up and say, all right, I'm going to go here, here, here? Kind of walk me through your steps of that third day of the tournament, kind of why you went to each spot.
Yeah, the third day I had a better idea of where to go. After the second day, I had that really good bag, so I kind of had the rotation down. But I was still trying to find a few new areas. And actually, the third day, I ended up catching the second day when I had that 34-pound bag, I ended up catching it pretty early. So I was able to actually spend the rest of my day finding 2 new places that I was able to fish the third and fourth day, which really helped me out in catching some big ones. So I used that last little bit of the second day to find 2 new places. And then the third day, I put my same rotation in that I used the second day, and I added 2 new places at the end of the day and ended up catching some key fish.
That's so. How did you find those 2 new places? Did you literally like sit down at your graph mid tournament and idle around?
Yep. So I looked at my unit and I was trying to decide, like, these fish are set up on this. They're around this depth of water, and these places around this area set up the same way. And so I just spent time behind my graphs. I think I spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours just looking at new places. I think I probably ran 20 or 30 new places, just scanning around until I found 2 good places.
Wow. So really, what were the fish kind of holding on? I know you said hard spot. Was it in like, were they obviously post spawn fish feeding? Were they super deep, kind of shallower, or did it kind of just depend on the spot?
Yeah, it depended on the spot. I had 2 places. Well, I had one place that was about 6 foot deep, and it was a hard spot in probably around the middle of the creek. And so it was kind of a big creek. So those fish were spawning all in the back of that creek. So they were funneling through that creek to stop on that shallower hard spot and then move out to the main lake. And then I had another hard spot that was in the mouth of a creek that they were using to, go from the back of that creek to hit that place. And then they were going to the main lake. But my best holes were on the main lake, super, super deep places. They were from 24 feet to 28 feet of water. And it seemed like the biggest fish that I caught were on the deepest stuff.
Wow. So kind of walk me through your day 3. I mean, you dropped another mega bag of Lake Fork bass. I think you had 33 something pounds. Kind of walk me through your rotation, what you did, kind of what you caught them on. I'm pretty sure you're pinging a minnow. Did you catch a couple on a jig that week, I believe, too, at Picasso with a Yamacraw? Kind of walk me through that.
Yeah, so I was mixing it up a lot. It seemed like the third day it got a little bit tougher. There was more and more fish every day, but I was running the same places. So it seemed like those fish were getting a little bit more pressured. I caught some on a minnow, and I also switched up to like you were saying, a jig with a Yamacraw. I actually got them right here, 3-inch Yamacraw right there, just in green pumpkin. I was throwing that on a 3/4 ounce football jig by Picasso, but trailer's really good. It's got a lot of kicking action when you're dragging it. I was just dragging it really slow. You could actually feel the hard spot when you were barely dragging it, and I was just moving it super slow, trying to get those fish that weren't cooperating to, just swim down there and pick it up. But I ran the same rotation, and it seemed like there was more and more fish coming to me. And then by the 4th day, there was more fish than I'd seen all week on those places.
Wow. So you had, I believe it was 33 pounds the 3rd day, correct?
Yep.
Did you catch them all right away again like you did on day 2, or was it you kind of had to work your way through the bag?
My key times every day were around 8:30 to about 12 o'clock. That was, so I guess around 4 hours was like my window of when I could catch the biggest ones.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
What was your most memorable fish catch on those first 3 days? And we're really going to pick apart the final day and just, how much that meant to you on Mother's Day and all that great stuff. What was your best fish catch you could remember on those first 3 days?
Man, I'm trying to think, because the most memorable catches were probably the 4th day for sure.
Okay.
Just honestly, just catching that biggest one that I caught the 3rd day, that over I caught I think it was an 8-12. Dude.
9 pounder.
Talk about a giant, man. It came up to the top of the water, and it just kind of swam like right under the surface, and I could see its whole back. And I was like, guys, this might be a 10 pounder, because it was the longest, one of the longest fish that I've ever seen, but she was skinny. And I got it to the boat. It jumped like crazy. I was like, oh, this fish is going to come off. Finally got it up to the boat, pulled it up, and it was just sitting right there on top of the water right beside me. And I told my camera guy, I looked over, I was like, I'm about to throw up, because I knew if I grabbed this fish and if it came off, I was going to be really upset. But I ended up getting it in the boat, and it was an over, an 8-12, and it put me at 33 pounds. So
Oh my gosh. Were you catching a bunch of bass throughout the whole like that 8:30 to 12 o'clock bite window, or was it pretty grindy? Like you only got 10 or so bites a day or even 5 bites a day. Kind of how was it that whole week for you?
Yeah, so the first and second day, I wasn't catching many. I would say I probably caught 10 to 15 bass the first and second day.
Mm-hmm.
But by the third and fourth day, there was so many fish coming out to those places that were, post spawners that were coming back
Yeah.
out offshore. I caught, I think the third and fourth day, I probably caught 20 to 30 bass.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
catching a bunch of nice ones. It was awesome.
What was the average size, do you think? Like, were they all around that 4 to 5 pound range? And then obviously you had 6s to 8 pounders, 10 pounders.
Yeah, man, it was a blessing. Honestly, the average size was probably 5+.
Oh my God. That's so much fun, dude. Your hands are probably so torn up right now.
Yeah, they hurt.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. So let's really dive into the final day, man. I know this final day meant a bunch to you. We kind of have a lot to cover with it. Would love to take the kind of back half of this podcast and really dive into it. You want to start me off with the morning and kind of how it all transpired into the biggest bag of your life?
Yeah, man. So I started off in the morning, and I went to a place that I'd caught them the second morning, and it just wasn't going on. There wasn't many fish there. I guess they got beat up the last 3 days, and so I was just like, hey, I'm just going to go scan and try to find a new shallow place that I can catch some fish. I was going to look for a hard spot. Ended up pulling up to a place. I was scanning it, and I looked over to my right, and there was about 30 birds lying down the bank, and they were all eating shad. And I was like, well, this looks like a pretty good shad spawn spot. So I got my box. I tied on a swim jig, picked my rod up, tied it on. About my second cast, I caught like a 6 1/4 on a swim jig.
Oh my God.
So I was like, heck yeah, that gets the day started off right. I had some good momentum going, and
Yeah.
ended up going to my second spot, and I was like, not getting them to bite. It was super tough. I'd already
Mhm.
pounded that place for 3 days, and I ended up picking up that jig with the Yamacraw trailer, slow dragging it. I had to creep it across the bottom. I ended up catching one that was almost 7 pounds
Wow.
at that spot. And so I was like, heck yeah, I got 2 good ones. I need 3 giant ones, and I might have a chance at this thing. So I ended up running my rotation, and man, it was on. Like every place I pulled up to after that, they were just chewing, and there was more fish on those places than I'd ever seen like the last 3 days. I'd say there was probably 50 to 100 on 3 of my places.
Oh my gosh.
So I was pumped. I pulled up to my next spot. I caught 2 over 5.5, and then I went to my next spot and I caught 3 over 6 and 3 casts in a row.
Holy smokes.
And then I pulled up to my next spot and I caught one almost 8. And I was like, this is unbelievable. It was a
Would-
dream, dude.
Unbelievable. So would it be like, could you catch, 3 or 4 out of a school, then they would get smart, in Gunnersville, as you know, you can only really catch a couple, then they get smart. Right? Was it the same thing at Lake Fork? Like they got really conditioned fast, or kind of how was that?
Yeah, definitely. It seemed like you would pull up and you would get a bite your first cast. You might catch a couple, and then the school would shut down, and you might catch one here, one there. So you
Wow.
kind of had to jump the places and catch one here, catch one there, catch one here, catch one there. But that final day, I got them fired up on like 2 or 3 places, and I ended up catching a bunch, which was really cool.
So the final day, let's really talk about your emotions going into the final day and like you realizing after when did you have the 34 pounds? I think it was by noon from what I remember watching Bass Track or
Yeah,
1 o'clock ish.
I think it was
What,
right.
yeah, what were your emotions? Like what's going on in your head?
I was like, well, this is the biggest bag that I've ever caught in a bass tournament, so this is pretty awesome. But I was like, I know that Corey has definitely got over 30 pounds, so I've got to catch like 40 pounds to have a shot at this thing. So I was fishing free, and I didn't have a lot of stress. I was like, I just got to go catch a giant bag, and if it happens, it happens. If the stars align and the Lord blesses me, I'll catch 2 10-pounders and win this thing.
Yeah.
So I was just grinding, trying to catch 8-pounders, and ended up catching right at 35 pounds. And it was enough. I didn't think it was going to be.
That's insane. What kind of talk to me how it was, going into the final day with Koya in front, Paul Marks right behind you, and y'all were in the same position the other week at Hartwell. Like, what is going on in your guys' house right now? That's nuts.
I was
Like, what
telling Dave,
were you? Yeah, what were you guys thinking?
we were freaking out, man. It's crazy that a good buddy of mine, Paul's one of my best friends, to be able to go back to back like that is it's unreal. I mean, we've spent a lot of time traveling together and fishing together, and it's so cool to be able to win a tournament just like your buddy did the week, 2 weeks before. So
Yeah.
I told Dave Mercer, I think our key the last couple of weeks was eating a bunch of junk food. So
Y'all are just a bunch of catchers in that house, straight up, literally.
we've just been blessed, man. It's been awesome, and that's a thing that I want to say is like just being able to do this is such a blessing, and I'm never going to take this for granted, because being able to travel around and catch bass for a living is something that a lot of people dream of doing, and it's something that I've dreamed of doing for a long time, and I definitely am not going to take it for granted.
For sure. For sure. Can you kind of explain to me what you felt on that final day after you won, winning on Mother's Day, having your mom and dad there with you on stage? Like, kind of talk to me through those emotions and how much that truly meant to you.
Yeah, it meant a ton to me. I was crying like a little baby up there because it was so special, man. I just having my mom there on Mother's Day, it was so cool. Me and my mom have fished a bunch in the past at home. We always fish the ponds around our house, and her whole side of the family fishes. So to be able to, my grandfather fishes a bunch, my uncle fishes a bunch. They got me into it. My dad's always been supportive. He bought me my first little boat back in the day, my little plastic boat that I used to fish out of when I was growing up out of the ponds. So, I mean, it's been awesome. My family's so supportive of me, and to be able to have a supportive family like that when you're fishing tournaments around the country is really important.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, man, Amart was your mentor, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he won also on Mother's Day, at Lake Havasu. I'm not too sure how long ago. I'm sure you can remember, but were you thinking about that kind of going into the final day? Like, what did that mean to you, kind of winning on the same day your mentor did? That's an incredible thing to even say. And it honestly feels like it was meant to be, right?
Yeah, I can't put it into words, man. Amart was such an amazing person, and even better person than he was a fisherman. Obviously, one of the best fishermen in the world, and
Yeah.
it was so special. I really didn't realize it. I knew that he had won on Mother's Day, but until Dave Mercer said that, it didn't set in for me. And then when he said that, it really just kind of broke me down, because I was like, dang, dude, like stuff like that just doesn't happen, like
Yeah.
it's not just a coincidence.
Like,
I know that Amart was looking down, and he was proud for sure. He
yeah,
told
totally.
me, like when we used to talk a bunch and hang out, he told me, he said, "You're going to win one of those blue trophies one day." I was like, "No way, dude."
Man, that's special. That is special. How did he, how did he really help you, mentor you, and what did he do for you to make you such an incredible fisherman and honestly shine down on you in this final day on Mother's Day and, get you this incredible win?
Yeah, man, I was able to spend a good amount of time with Amart. Not as much as I'd like to. I think I knew him for about 5 years, but spent a bunch of time with him. His daughter Jordan fished on the Briarwood bass team, the same high school that I went to, and she fished with my cousin Sadie. So being able to be around him and just sitting there talking to him about bass fishing, going over to his house, hanging out with him was so cool to me. And the biggest thing, being able to fish with him, man, he was just an incredible person. Just when I got in the boat with him and I was in high school, he would I remember one time we went fishing at the Alabama River, and he was like, "Well, where do you want to go fishing?" He's like, "Where do you want to go?" I looked over at him. I was like, "You're Aaron Martens. Like, why are you asking a high school kid, where do you want to go fishing?" You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, totally.
he just never thought of himself like he was like a hot shot or nothing like that. He was just the most humble guy you've ever met.
For sure. For sure. What was the biggest kind of lesson you took away from this event, Tucker? I'm honestly choking up a little bit about that story of the AMR. It's incredible. Like, dude, it's just meant to be. But what was the biggest thing you took away from this event?
The biggest thing I've taken away is just honestly to not give up and keep fishing hard, because I've come up close, man, like a bunch, and
Yeah.
I've had 2 second places in the classic bracket. I had 2 second places in the opens. I had a second place at Hartwell in the elite last week or 2 weeks ago. So
Insane.
to be that close, man, and to taste it, I mean, I was so close in a few of those tournaments to being able to win those tournaments. And it honestly, just getting this win, and I didn't expect it. It's when you least expect it. And that's what it taught me, is keep fishing as hard as you can, put as much time in as you can, and your time will come. And this week was my time, apparently, and it ended up working out.
Totally. Would you kind of say staying at the house you're at right now with all these phenomenal fishermen? I mean, you got Paul Marks, Loberg, and Emil. Is that making you a better fisherman? I mean, y'all are a house full of catchers. Is that kind of enhancing your game? Or do you feel like you're more dialed than you've ever been, kind of helping you get this win?
Definitely. I mean, those guys are so good. They're all super dialed in, like you were saying. They're incredible fishermen. Being around good fishermen like that makes you a better angler. Being able to, have a competitive kind of thing going between the whole house is cool. It's awesome when we all make the cut, we all get pumped up, and we're all
Yeah.
happy for each other. That's the biggest thing. It's like you hear a lot of guys saying, everybody's out for themselves. They're going to go try to win, the tournament and not worry about anybody else. But our house is truly, everybody watches out for each other, and we're all happy for everybody else's. If somebody does good, we're happy.
Heck yeah. What would you give? I've always kind of like closing off the podcast this question. What piece of advice would you give to a younger angler listening to this? Like, man, we were both fishing in college against each other not that long ago. What advice would you give to someone that's, in high school or middle school fishing right now?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, especially if you're in the high school fishing, is just stay in it, fish as much as you can. Time on the water is everything, and that's what I've been doing the last 6, 7, 8 years of my life, is just spending a ton of time on the water, trying to adapt to all the conditions that are changing, learning new baits, learning new techniques, and just trying to fine tune everything that I can. But the high school and the college fishing is probably the biggest thing that's helped me so far in my fishing career. Just college fishing, I'd say, is probably one of the biggest things that helped me. Just being able to travel to all those different places around the country, having a buddy beside you that, if something happens, if you blow a tire going down the interstate, you've got somebody there to help you, and you figure it out, learn how to go different places, and figure out those fisheries. It's just really cool being able to travel. So if you want to fish, definitely try to go to college and try to get on a fishing team. And a lot of those lakes that y'all go to in college it's also on the open schedule as well. So if you want to go to the opens, a lot of the lakes that the opens go to, the college schedule goes to, and then as well as fishing all the opens, a lot of the places that the opens go, the elites go to. So it's cool being able to travel around, kind of have that stair step of being able to, go from high school to college to the opens to the elites.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I remember in college we would go to some of the best lakes I've ever been to and some of the absolute worst grindy events. But it was just, even for me competing against you, it was awesome to watch you kind of grow into the angler you are today now. And we're still working together, not fishing against each other, but we're still working together. Is really cool to see. And it's awesome for me and for everyone at GSM to see you win this event, man. We were so happy for you. Everyone was watching on live the final day, texting our group chat, man. It was incredible. And just a huge congratulations from all of us. Seriously.
I really appreciate that, man. Yeah, I've known you for a long time. It's cool that we're still working together too. So it's awesome that to see, how time flies, and we're getting old now. I appreciate everybody, but we're getting old.
Of course, man.
Makes
Of course.
us feel old.
Exactly. Well, good luck at the Sabine River this week, man. And hopefully you can catch him up. Go get you 12 pounds a day. Thanks a lot, Tucker.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, there we go. Oh my gosh, this is